What's up, Porch Nation? Welcome back to Porch Nation Studios here in Worcester, Massachusetts, and welcome to December. Week 12 was our first of 3 division games to close out the season, and divisional standing was on the line in many matchups. We also have one of the tightest playoff hunt races I can recall. We saw the top of the league miss a step, and we have a staggering 6-way tie around the league at 5-7. There are 8 teams, yes, half of the league, still mathematically in the hunt, despite the fact that our in the hunt graphic caps at 5 teams, and we only have just 2 games left. It's Deja Vu Week 1. Let regular season mayhem and playoff fever reign. Let's get into it. Week 12 was jam-packed with big games and playoff seeding implications, although seeding is barely more solid than it was last week. As I mentioned, half the league are in the playoff hunt, and there are 6 teams projected to punch their tickets already. That's a whole lot of the league still vying for a playoff berth. So let's start out on the sunny shores of the South Division. We had 2 great matchups with standing well in the balance. When it came to Adam versus Andy Part 2, Andy came in with revenge on the docket, having lost their first showdown just 4 weeks ago. Both Adam and Andy struggled at different points this season, but now, with this game going Andy's way, they're both amongst the 5-7 playoff hunt crowd. The other South game was a fight for first atop the division. Josh Steinberg has crafted a great second half, which currently sees him occupying the second wildcard spot with a head-to-head tiebreaker against Dylan. Skinner had a sizable division lead at one point and has seen that lead dwindle down to 2 games. With this loss, however, Josh will stay at that 6th seed spot, and Skinner is officially crowned the king in the South for 2022. Josh is the only 2022 team with no in-division wins, but he's still got 2 chances left to correct that. Skinner is one of only 2 teams with no in-division losses so far this season. Let's now move on to the industrious East Division. Dylan and Jeff faced off to finish their season series. Their Week 8 matchup took us right down to the wire, and Dylan took it by 1 Nick Chubb tutty. This one was decided by about 20 points, completes the season sweep for Dylan, and keeps him within 1 game of both the wildcard race and first in the division. Jeff has 2 more chances to end the season at 500 for in-division games. The other East matchup pitted Pete against Josh Marshall. The whole of the East lost last week, so everyone came in trying to get back on track. Pete is in the mix of the playoff hunt, and Josh is trying to keep Dylan at bay with a 1-game division lead. Pete's team saw a drastic improvement over last week's dud, but not enough to overcome Josh's crew, and this one was decided by just over 20 points. Pete is still right in the playoff hunt mix as one of those 6 5-7 teams. He's got his chance at beating his favorite rival this week, and will need to win out to keep his chances alive of being in that wildcard race. Let's head out to the Wild West, a place where you can still see people on horseback, real-life cowboys, gold diggers, stagecoaches, all in a porno being filmed on your neighbor's patio. For much of the season, there have been tied records. At least 2 teams, often 3, and 1 week all 4 of us. We came into this week with a 2-team tie at the center, and Ross and I outliers on either end. Well, Ross came in ready to finish his season sweep of Greg. Greg is on an ever-growing losing streak, a streak that began Week 8 against Ross. Now at 5 losses in a row and a 1-3 in-division record, Greg is at the bottom of the 3-way tie and one of those 6 5-7 teams in the playoff hunt. Ross will get his chance at splitting his season series with Alex this coming week, which would put him in second in the division. Greg is going to have to stop the bleeding, and so far is projected to do that against me next week. If Ross wins out and I lose out, Ross can take the whole division. Speaking of me, first person to first placed person, I completed my season sweep of Alex this week. Al came in this week 1 game out of first and on a streak of struggling to break 100 points. In fact, the last time he broke 100 points was in our last head-to-head in week 8. Can't make this stuff up. He's part of a cluster of 5 and 7 teams in the hunt and will need to snag the last 2 games to stay in the conversation. If I can win at least one of the remaining 2 games, I'll clinch the West Division title for this season. Finally, the northern stretches of the Granite State, where our top overall and top wildcard teams reside. Joe seems comfortable in games against division opponents, to the tune of 10 wins in a row as of this week. A sub-100 outing from D wouldn't come close to this week's highest score from Joe, highest by 0.45 points over my own score, by the way, thanks Josh Jacobs. And this loss puts D more likely in a battle with Jeff to see who earns the Browns moniker in chat. Joe leads the wildcard pack, and with this win, narrows Berg's lead to 1 game in the division with their final head-to-head coming up this week. Hoo-wee! And now, our game of the week. James Berger arrives at this one 2 games ahead in division and about 2 games ahead of anyone in the overall standings. Meanwhile, Steve arrives having won 2 of his last 3 and sitting near the top of the in the hunt crowd. Well, 2 interesting things happened in this game. First, our league leader took a hit. Always fun to see. Lowest points scored in the game since week 1 for Berg, and he scored 29 more points than this back then. In fact, Burge was the last team without a sub-100 score so far this season. Oddly enough, only 2 other teams have just 1 sub-100 game this year. Skinner's was in week 2 and Josh Marshall's was in week 6, and they both won those games regardless of those season low scores. Second, despite all the weeks leading up to now, where it looked like everyone was racing to be in the middle, remember a couple weeks ago when there were like so many 5-5 teams? As of week 12, Steve has perfected it. Steve is the only team with a 6-6 record in the league. There's a sea of 5-7 teams behind him and 3 7-5 teams in front of him. Berger came into this one on the season's longest win streak at 6 games, and since the next closest is Joe on a streak of 3 wins right now, 6 will reign as our longest win streak of the year. Kudos, brother. Since Joe won their first head-to-head, all Joe needs to do is win out or for Berger to lose out for him to take that division. And in that case, Berg will still end up as a wild card team, so he's officially clinched the playoffs. Wow, that was a lot of words. Let's check in on the playoff projections. So that was week 12, folks. I wish I could say the playoff tree is becoming more clear, but anywhere from 7 to 12 teams still have a real fighting chance at a spot in the show, and there's just 2 games left. We've got more divisional standings in the balance on Deja Vu week 2 here in week 13, and it's already looking like underdogs might rule the day. Injuries aren't stopping, and rookies are starting to get their shots, so dredge those free agency waters for whatever catches it's got. Man, week 13 and things are starting to look real good. Let's finish strong. Until next week, keep thriving, Porch Nation. Bloop. That moment when You weren't recording. Okay, well, here we go.